Story 1. One of the biggest surprises of the last Trump presidency and the current one is just how much unchecked power a president can actually have. Story 2. Democrats applaud when Trump mentions that the United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense. Republicans remain silent, even though many of them voted for the supplemental aid bill last year that Speaker Mike Johnson presented. Story 3. Let me guess. Biden, Ukraine, Biden, Russia, Canada, 51st state. Best economy, Biden, tariffs, big win, tariff, Canada, Biden. Story 4. Make your bets on the following. 1. Withdrawal from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Lifting sanctions on Russia. Additional tariffs on allies. Issues related to violating the First Amendment. More sanctions on Ukraine. Wet his diapers. Withdrawal from the United Nations. Story 5. At this point, he could publicly admit he is a Russian asset, and his followers will use their impressive reasoning skills to explain how this is actually wonderful and beneficial for our country. Story 6. Dear God, if you strike Trump, Elon, and Vance on live television tonight, I will believe you exist. I will also accept just Trump if it's particularly striking, like a lightning bolt or something similar. Story 7. I can't wait to see Elon standing 5 feet to the side, ready to jump in to make corrections and clarifications. Story 8. I fully expect some surprising news to create even more intense drama, but I don't want to check before I go to bed because I really need to catch up on sleep. Story 9. Whatever happens, please don't forget to say thank you. Otherwise, you risk appearing ungrateful. Story 10. The Democrat signs are ineffective. They should have all protested in a more unified manner, like Representative Green, to show that they are still engaged. Story 11. Canada and Mexico have agreed to my special terms, and all tariffs will be removed. They have committed to supporting our efforts to secure our border and prioritize America. We are making progress. I will postpone the tariffs for an additional 2 months to assess their commitment. Story 12. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled that any mandatory death penalty was unconstitutional in the case of Gregg versus Georgia in 1976. Story 13. Did he really just say one way or another when talking about how Greenland would become part of the United States? Story 14. I dislike that announces he is disbanding Congress and arrests all the opposition representatives are both on the bingo card for this situation. Story 15. Today, I am announcing that we are gifting Alaska to Russia in return for their support of the invasion of Canada, which will commence at the conclusion of this broadcast. Additionally, consider investing in cryptocurrency and refrain from being unkind to Elon, or there may be consequences. Make America great again. Story 16. I won't be watching from the United Kingdom. As much as I'm curious to hear today's excuses for the latest tantrum, I can't stand hearing him talk. So I'll catch the summary tomorrow. I wake up every morning to find that he can indeed do something more foolish, insane, or destructive than he did yesterday. And there is still no sign of any responsible adults coming to stop him. Story 17. Trump is discussing the removal of toxins and chemicals from the environment for health reasons, while also advocating for the elimination of federal regulations designed to achieve that goal. Story 18. Interest rates saw a significant drop. Let me introduce you to the Dow Jones Industrial Average from yesterday. That was also a substantial decline. Story 19. How will farmers have a good day? We cannot consume all the soybeans we produce, and we know how skeptical some individuals are about soy. It is cheaper for other countries to import from elsewhere due to tariffs. Trump created the current North American Free Trade Agreement and claimed it was the best ever, but now he is upset and saying we are being taken advantage of. This deal maker is not succeeding. Story 20. Oh, we love a subtle declaration of war. We will get it, one way or another. This is probably not the first time Trump has used that phrase. Story 21. Some good foresight from the previous administration resulted in a law that requires 2/3 of Congress to approve leaving NATO. Story 22. We will acquire Greenland one way or another. Did we just imply that we will invade Greenland if they do not join the United States? Story 23. I encourage everyone to read the Declaration of Independence in its entirety. Our founders anticipated this and provided guidance for addressing it. Story 24. I've stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. President Trump. This is misleading. Mr. Trump signed an executive order claiming to protect free speech, but he has taken a number of other actions that arguably limit it. The White House has barred the Associated Press from the Oval Office and Air Force One for declining to use the term Gulf of America. He threatened this week to pull federal funding from schools that allow illegal protests, a move condemned by civil liberties organizations as an infringement on the First Amendment. Civil rights groups have sued over his efforts to ban diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which they argue stifle speech. Story 25. My bets, in order of most to least likely. I wouldn't be surprised to see all four happen. 1. Announcement of official military operations inside Mexico, ostensibly to fight the cartels. Claims about how Zelensky will sign the mineral rights deal. Trump will assert he fulfilled his promise to end the war, even though that is not close to happening, despite this deal being signed. Withdrawal from NATO, potentially tariffs in response to the retaliations announced for the first round. This one will happen eventually. It's just a matter of whether he is prepared to announce it tonight. Story 26. It will involve a lot of nonsensical talk, followed by an outrageous statement, which could lead to a further decline in the stock market. There will be a declaration of victory and some humorous golf-related comment regarding Joe Biden, the Democrats, and the so-called woke culture. Story 27. I would rather fall down a dozen flights of concrete stairs than listen to that loud and unpleasant person utter a single word. Story 28. We have had the best and most historic first month in the history of the office of the president. A huge and successful month. If Biden's economy weren't so awful, the stock market would be so high right now it would be unbelievable. It is unfortunate that we have to clean up this mess. Also, the tariffs are quite something. Just the thought of them is motivating Europe to fund their military and Canada and Mexico to secure their borders, which is a huge win for us. Huge thanks to Dogecoin for helping address our corrupt government. They are doing great work. Expect great things in my first 100 days with much more to come. That is my assumption anyway. It will likely include more about the Democrats and how great Musk and Russia are, but other than that, I expect a significant amount of nothing of substance. Story 29. The budget plan proposed by House Republicans last week would increase the deficit, allocating $4.5 trillion for tax cuts while reducing federal spending by $2 trillion. Story 30. A little disturbance. He is saying we are going to be in trouble. That is a guarantee if we come out. It cannot be predicted. Story 31. Even in an emotional moment focused on ending childhood cancer, Trump criticizes Democrats for not expressing support for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his Health and Human Services Secretary. Story 32. For all his aversion to getting the United States involved in military entanglements abroad, Trump is now outlining a sweeping vision of American dominance, building up naval capacity, reclaiming the Panama Canal, and pledging to acquire Greenland one way or another. Story 33. Not long ago, it was 1 in 10,000 children diagnosed with autism. Now, it is 1 in 36. There is something wrong. President Trump is correct that 1 in 36 American children is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. However, the rate was 1 in 150 children 25 years ago, which is much higher than the figure mentioned by President Trump. Story 34. We will take in trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before. President Trump. This lacks evidence. The substantial tariffs that Mr. Trump is imposing on foreign products will raise revenue for the government. However, total U.S. imports last year were about $3.3 trillion, meaning that tariffs would have to be incredibly high to generate the trillions of dollars of revenue that Mr. Trump claims. Story 35. Whatever it is, I will have to read about it in this thread after the fact because I am not going to give him an hour of my time. Story 36. At this point, I fully expect another reckless and misguided step toward a complete alignment with dictatorship, which most of America either supports or seems too shocked to address. I don't know. Let's consider rescinding Russian sanctions and launching more attacks on allies instead. If we want to add some flair, maybe we can include some military posturing for good measure. Story 37. I am watching the CNN broadcast. Our media is still treating this situation as if it is business as usual. Story 38. It is striking to hear Trump discussing the national debt so frequently. He added approximately $8 trillion to the national debt during his first term, and his proposed tax cuts are expected to contribute trillions more. Story 39. I can't remember a time when a president criticized his predecessor in a congressional address. Story 40. Vance was looking tough the whole time as if he were some tough guy. He wasn't so bad when he was being chased out of the ski resort. Story 41. Once again, I must remind everyone that during the last election, this individual made a fool of himself every day without fail. This continued for 4 whole years, day in and day out. Story 42. Why sit through the nonsense when I can get all the highlights shortly after on news and late-night shows? Lower his ratings, his ego can't handle it. Story 43. In order to ensure security and ongoing stability, the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society. Story 44. And unfortunately, since some individuals may interpret this incorrectly, we are immediately suspending Second Amendment rights in the following jurisdictions. Story 45. My prediction is that Trump will perform a Nazi salute and then refer to it as a Musk salute, with his supporters defending it as just a joke. Story 46. So, are tens of millions of people over 100 years old receiving benefits? Now, part of the confusion comes from the Social Security software system, which is based on the Common Business-Oriented Language programming language and has a lack of date type. This means that some entries with missing or incomplete birth dates will default to a reference point of more than 150 years ago. Additionally, a series of reports from the Social Security Administration's Inspector General in March 2023 and July 2024 states that the agency has not established a new system to properly annotate death information in its database. This information included roughly 18.9 million Social Security numbers of people born in 1920 or earlier who were not marked as deceased. However, this does not mean that these individuals were receiving benefits. Story 47. How is he going to make things worse today? That is all I want to know. I feel like it will be another bad day. Story 48. What is Elon if he isn't an unelected bureaucrat making government decisions now? Trump is trying to incite protests in the streets. Story 49. The days of being ruled by unelected officials are over, Trump says. Democrats scoff and point to the gallery where Musk is sitting. Story 50. I'm from the United Kingdom and have never watched a full congressional address before. However, this amount of cheering and chanting cannot be normal, right? Is this the standard for this kind of event? Story 51. They have allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens and many young people, destroying families. President Trump. This is misleading. In the past year, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has been announcing declines in overdose fatalities. According to provisional data released last month, overdose deaths in the 12-month period ending in September 2023 are expected to drop nearly 24% compared with the previous year. Although Mr. Trump said hundreds of thousands had been killed, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention predicts that there were 87,000 deaths between October 2023 and September 2024, down from 114,000, the fewest overdose deaths in any 12-month period since June 2020. While fentanyl is the dominant drug listed in a majority of these deaths, the presence of other substances, notably stimulants like methamphetamine and cocaine, is increasingly being detected. Story 52 complains about childhood cancer rates caused by toxins and claims he will clean up the environment to eliminate these toxins. However, earlier in the same speech, he boasted about removing environmental protections. Story 53. How would you, as American voters, have reacted if Democratic members of Congress had brawled with Republicans on the floor while the speech was happening? Story 54. I expect something unimaginable to happen in the United States tonight. He will find new ways to embarrass us on a global stage, further damaging our reputation and credibility, and will receive a standing ovation from the Republican Party. Story 55. Things are moving too fast nowadays, especially since Trump was elected. I honestly feel we have seen more in a month compared to Biden's 4 years. This is just an outsider's point of view. Story 56. We ended all of President Biden's environmental restrictions that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. Importantly, we ended the last administration's electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto workers and companies from economic destruction. This is false. While Mr. Trump has issued executive orders aimed at rolling back some of the Biden administration's climate regulations, the Trump administration has not initiated the legal proceedings to do so. That process can take years to complete. For now, all those regulations remain active. Additionally, there is no electric vehicle mandate, though the Biden administration did enact a set of regulations that would, in effect, compel automakers to sell more electric vehicles. Those rules also remain intact for the moment. Story 57. Democrats need to rethink their response. They appear powerless and ineffective. They should fight with the same determination as Republicans. It's time to prioritize action over decorum. Story 58. Predictions for what he will announce. 1. A complete withdrawal of all U.S. involvement in Ukraine, including resources currently in use, unless a mineral deal is reached and concessions are made to Russia. Removing tariffs on Russia and/or imposing sanctions on Ukraine. Leaving the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the United Nations. Increasing tariffs on Canada in response to tariffs imposed by Prime Minister Trudeau. Additional tariffs for other countries. Complete elimination of Medicaid, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Social Security, and other programs designed to assist those in need. An order that further restricts the rights of minorities and LGBTQ+ individuals. Declaring a national emergency to consolidate further power. Story 59. Someone just said, "You really triggered those people on a hot mic." This behavior shows a willingness to undermine the country for political gain. Story 60. Tonight, 1 in 5 American children will go hungry and not know where their next meal will come from. His tariffs will make this situation worse. Much of our food, both healthy and otherwise, relies on crops and products grown across borders and overseas. Prices will rise. Deteriorating relationships and American isolation will increase shipping costs. These costs will further escalate. We already have food deserts, both rural and urban areas without adequate access to affordable, healthy foods like fresh fruits and vegetables. These deserts will expand as affordability decreases. As scarcity increases, prices will rise. Moreover, prices will not only rise in proportion to cost increases. Profiteering is rampant. Some individuals excessively raise prices beyond the effects of inflation to make record profits. It would be naive to think this will not happen again. That individual is going to perform, pretending to be a savior while knowing he will enrich himself and his associates at your expense. They derive pleasure from firing people and have deceived America into accepting higher prices. He does not care how many more children go hungry tomorrow night and the nights that follow. Story 61. A part of me wants to watch to laugh at the silly things he will say, but another part of me does not want to watch because of all the silly things he will say. Story 62. Trump's speech. I am the most remarkable and extraordinary president the United States has ever had. I am better than Washington, Lincoln, and Elmo. Elmo is a wonderful person. I have never met him, but he is a great guy. Story 63. Finally, Elon made his appearance. They said the president would be delivering a speech, and I kept waiting. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. Edit. Why does Trump keep talking? Has nobody told him to keep introductions brief? Story 64. Gold card Russian oligarchs cannot face financial repercussions for Russians if they are American citizens. Story 65. Prices of groceries are too high because of the current administration, and I will bring them down. My tariffs will make American farmers prosperous because they will have no competition. Story 66. They might need to finish this soon. Not sure how long Vance can be away from a couch given his separation anxiety. Story 67. Mandatory death sentence for anyone who murders a police officer. He will be signing pardons frequently for his supporters. Story 68. Unless he brings up Ukraine in the next 5 to 10 minutes, which is the only reason I am here, I will need to stop watching so I can go be sick. Story 69. The armed forces generals and admirals do not look happy, except for the second person from the left in the front row. Story 70. My God, how much longer can he possibly talk? He'll have to recharge his batteries at some point, right? Story 71. Oh cool, making a derogatory remark in the middle of a State of the Union speech. That was him referring to Warren as Pocahontas for anyone who is asking. Story 72. We really don't have much on Parliament. Al Green was the only politician tonight with any courage whatsoever. Story 73. I will be getting on a flight just as this starts, so I will have 10 hours to wonder what happens. On the positive side, the flight is away from the United States. Story 74. What are the concerns regarding how Republicans demonstrated extreme and excessive admiration and praise for every statement Trump made? Do you think the Republicans' collective raucous adulation was authentic or compulsory? Story 75. Democrats should shout "you lie" at him a few times. I know Republicans support this kind of behavior. Story 76. Honestly, this could be one of the biggest events in recent history or completely irrelevant. I guess we will find out. Story 77. I'm surprised I haven't seen it browsing this thread yet. I expect a withdrawal from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and/or the United Nations. Story 78. Let's make bold predictions about what he might do or say, so when he says something even worse, we can respond with surprise. I bet he will declare Trudeau a tyrant. Story 79. This individual makes baseless claims backed by no facts, numbers, or statistics, relying only on loaded language. Story 80. Free speech in America is back. Unless you criticize the government, you might get ejected by the sergeant at arms. Story 81. Student question. What promises did Hitler make that influenced Germans to support the Nazi Party? Quick answer. Hitler's promises that attracted Germans to the Nazi Party included restoring German dignity and greatness, returning to traditional values and forms of governance, re-establishing male dominance, and promoting the role of women in the home. He promised to withdraw from the League of Nations, oppose communism, discard the Versailles Treaty, and blame Jews and internationalists for Germany's problems. Additionally, he pledged to provide jobs, food, and prosperity amid the economic crisis of the Great Depression. These promises resonated with many Germans who felt overwhelmed by rapid social and economic changes. Story 82. The previous administration cut the number of new oil and gas leases by 95%. President Trump. This needs context. The Biden administration did significantly cut the number of new oil and gas leases as part of an effort to transition the United States away from fossil fuels, the burning of which drives climate change. It approved 315,997 acres of federal lands for leasing, compared with 6 million acres offered by President Trump in his first term, representing a 95% reduction. The rationale of the Biden administration was that drillers should first utilize the millions of acres they had already leased before seeking more land. At the same time, the Biden administration approved many permits for companies to drill on land and in waters they had already leased, most notably an $8 billion project known as Willow in the North Slope of Alaska. The decrease in new leases did not hinder production. On the contrary, oil and gas companies experienced some of their most profitable years during the Biden administration, and oil and gas production surged to record highs. Story 83. Where are the parents of the children who died because they were denied medical procedures by their insurance provider? Story 84. It is astonishing how quickly he contradicts himself. He states, "People will be hired based on merit." 10 minutes later, he says, "As Commander-in-Chief, I am accepting your application to West Point because I can," and everyone cheers. Story 85. President Trump stated that his administration has been removing illegal immigrants from the country and getting them out quickly. This is misleading. Quickly is a relative term. Compared with the pace of deportations during parts of the Biden administration, the numbers have lagged. Immigration and Customs Enforcement deported about 600 people a day in mid-February, according to the latest government data available. During the Biden administration, ICE deported about 750 a day in the 12 months through November. At the current pace, there would be 219,000 deportations over a 12-month period. This would be half as many as the Obama administration executed in the 2013 fiscal year. President Barack Obama oversaw the most deportations of any president in recent history, a record that eluded Mr. Trump in his first term. Story 86. Just a Canadian speculating here, but I hope he doesn't imply declaring war on US for national security purposes. Good luck, friends. Story 87. I hope Democrats express their frustration loudly so that it comes to an end. No offense to Michelle, but I am tired of the we go high approach. It's time to fight fire with fire. Story 88. $76 billion on false tan. $373 billion on eggs. $294.747 billion on feral cat adoption in South Africa. Story 89. Think about the average American. They have almost no critical thinking skills. I believe platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook have contributed to a decline in cognitive abilities for many individuals. Story 90. We want to eliminate toxins, but we are also defunding the organization that would regulate them. Story 91. I will never understand how being conservative in America went from fighting Russia in the 1980s to putting Russia in the position of president in the 2020s. Only 40 years apart. How fast do those people forget? Story 92. Anyone who resists this will be removed from office. Didn't you just say true American democracy? More like true American dictatorship. Story 93. One of Donald's biggest stances during his campaign was getting America out of foreign wars and utilizing those funds to improve the lives of working-class Americans. He continues to use that as an excuse for withdrawing support from Ukraine. So, can someone explain how he and his voters can justify doubling down on Israel and being closely aligned with Netanyahu? Story 94. It will never happen, but I would love to see the Democrats stand up and leave as soon as Trump enters the room. Story 95. The only logical response to this speech that I have tonight is to eat bread over the sink in a dissociative state. Story 96. I believe this is the first time in history that a president has addressed a joint session of Congress in a non-State of the Union speech solely to boast about himself. It was the most disgraceful display I have ever seen, and he revealed himself with every word to be a petty, cruel, and small-minded man. Story 97. It's midnight in Germany, and I am going to bed. I am excited to see what new experiences await me tomorrow morning. Story 98. Anyone know how to watch without tuning into cable? I don't want to inflate Donnie's ego any further by increasing his ratings. Story 99. We understand their disdain for education for everyone. They take pride in cutting funding to translate Sesame Street for the next decade. Story 100. I swear he said, "We'll get Greenland, one way or another," after claiming he supports their freedom to choose. Story 101. I tried to hear the speech, but I haven't been able to listen to Trump since 2018. If you don't think he sounds like an idiot, you might be one too. Story 102. Trump removes his mask, revealing that he is actually one of Putin's body doubles. Story 103. Why does it feel like we are all waiting for some Monday night rehabilitation? Story 104. Notice that Trump mentions the Social Security database but never mentions that the people in that database are no longer receiving payments. They are simply in the database. Story 105. Democrats exited the chamber as Trump finished his speech. I am going to leave as well. Stay informed and do not believe everything presented to you, even from me. Consult articles from experts, knowledgeable sources, and reliable outlets. It is not always easy to find the truth, but credible sources do exist. Continue to stand and fight for our true democracy. Best wishes to all Americans and to everyone who advocates for a fair and equal way of life. Story 106. Do you find it alarming that a large section of the speech was dedicated to denigrating and disparaging the Social Security Administration? Did you notice there was no declaration to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Do you suspect the Trump administration will cut these programs to achieve the goal of $2 trillion in cuts to the U.S. budget? Story 107. Breaking news. Trump misleads and lies in his speech to a joint session of Congress, with no American people watching. Story 108. Living in the UK, what power do the people of the United States have to remove a tyrannical acting president from office? How would this occur in practice? Story 109. Can we give him the lowest ratings ever? That's what he actually cares about. There is no need to watch his manipulative behavior. He often expresses absurd and unbelievable statements. Story 110. His mouth puckers like a small hole, which makes sense considering all the things that come out of it, and it annoys me. Story 111. Will the laminated face count be speaking tonight or just the burst colostomy bag with the cobweb wig? Story 112. Blame Joe for everything. Not the rapid defunding of programs that work to reduce disease and implement regulations that help solve the problems. Story 113. How can the USA even start production when the cost to import the necessary steel and conductors would cripple building because of the tariffs? This is a fantasy land. Story 114. It's going to be a chaotic situation. At best, he will complain about what bothers him. At worst, he may start an actual conflict. Story 115. Each and every Democrat should stand up and boo until they are walked out one at a time. Make this take hours. Story 116. Here is my issue. He is appealing to his base. He knows what they want to hear to incite them. There is no saving them. There is no saving us. As difficult as it sounds, we are in trouble for the next generation. This is not exaggeration. I am not being dramatic. We are in the midst of a cold civil war. When will we get out of it? 20 years from now? Story 117. I don't know how or exactly why, but I would love to see him handcuffed and arrested live on television for something that he does not have presidential immunity for. Story 118. We are saving a significant amount of money. I have the best resources, and Melania loves me more than Justin Trudeau. There are also golden statues in golfing. Story 119. I feel sad and scared for the transgender community as I watch the American president attempt to erase this entire group of people and confuse them by suggesting this is some kind of protection for our children. Story 120. There is talk that the Democrats are planning various strategies. Some are as passive as color-coordinating clothing, while there is some chatter about bringing victims of his policies. Likely, there will be outbursts and booing. I would like to hear a coordinated chant of "The Emperor has no clothes" repeatedly throughout the event. It would be entertaining to have some individuals join in with the Russian national anthem. Story 121. What is this person talking about? Winning a race by 5 hours? Was it a race around the earth? Story 122. Republicans are getting a lot of exercise standing up and clapping after every sentence Trump makes. It seems very cult-like. Story 123. Democrats could have sent a stronger message by protesting and being removed alongside Representative Al Green. Empty seats compared to silence convey a stronger message. Yet they continue their yearly pattern of protesting without speaking out. Story 124. The Democrats are holding up signs as if they are at a silent auction. It is no wonder this situation is effective. Story 125. Countless other nations charge us significantly higher tariffs than we charge them. President Trump. This is exaggerated. The United States does have lower average tariff rates than most countries globally, but the rates are fairly similar to those of other wealthy nations. Story 126. If Zelensky actually wrote that, "I will eat my hat. My hat is in the slow cooker." Zelensky is a much bigger person than I. Story 127. Dominant civilization to ever exist on this earth. Healthiest communities. This all sounds like a nationalist propaganda rally, but then again, I suppose that fits. Story 128. Does the average Trump supporter know that his implementation of tariffs actually means prices in America for consumers will increase? Story 129. Democrats are sitting and moping. The Republicans applaud as if this man has single-handedly cured cancer, which is quite strange. America needs to reform these parties and start anew. Story 130. This is truly terrifying. They stand up every 2 minutes, clapping, cheering, and shouting. You never see Democrats or Republicans under any other administration behave like this. After the new president quote, they started chanting Trump, Trump. Have you ever heard Democrats chanting Biden, Biden, or Republicans chanting Bush, Bush? It's not a party anymore. It's a cult, led by an elderly, slurring individual whose strings are pulled by dictators and billionaires. Story 131. When he went on his whole law enforcement needs to be respected rant and stated that anyone who kills an officer should receive the death penalty, I was yelling at the television. It only applies if they weren't law enforcement officers on January 6th. Such nonsense. Story 132. The individual with a criminal record is likely to increase protections for police unions, as he has never been held accountable to them. This is an unfortunate beginning to a situation reminiscent of oppressive enforcement agencies. Story 133. Hey, worm food, what about the measles outbreak? What are you doing about it other than offering platitudes and sending inventory we already have? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.